most important is storytelling. The issue is nobody actually cares about your vision if you can't articulate it, if you can't make them feel why it matters. Remember, insiders have institutional credibility. When they speak, people listen by default. When you speak, you have to earn every second. Every second counts. Being on message every single time counts. All political campaigns that have worked in basically our history: Obama, hope and change; Trump, make America great again; Zohran, lower the rent, lower the cost. That's it. It was just staying on message. Same thing in business. If you're building a business, you better stay on message as to what you are providing, what your solution is giving people, and why it matters. Remember, Steve Jobs didn't sell computers. He sold rebels who think different than the stodgy Microsoft PC that everybody was using. Airbnb didn't sell couches. They sold belonging anywhere. People don't buy solutions. They don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. They buy stories about what those solutions make possible. Welcome back to The Calling Code with Mina Salib, a place where we speak to and learn from people who are driven by excellence and led by faith. Today, we're going to be discussing how outsiders actually have an advantage. If you didn't know, if you're living under a rock, this was election week this week. I'm sure you've been following the news. You see mayoral win in New York City of Zohran. You saw wins around the country for many different candidates. But particularly as a New Yorker, I really wanted to focus on a win that, even a year ago was not expected at all. Zohran specifically came out of kind of nowhere, even though he's been in politics for a little bit of time. And I want to just really not necessarily get into any sort of political conversation, but really understand and analyze why outsiders actually have an advantage oftentimes in politics and business. And so, and this, it's funny because outsiders really terrify establishment, right? Or legacy, right? They terrify them. Whether you're right or left, whether you're Democrat or Republican, and whether you're in business or not, outsiders always terrify incumbents. Upstart companies, for instance, always terrify big corporations that have existed for decades. And why is that? So I want to just really kind of analyze what goes into giving outsiders a real advantage. And so first and foremost, I think we kind of all understand at this point that the system is really designed to keep outsiders out. Insiders have the resources, they have the connections, and they have credibility. Yet outsiders win a lot of the time, and they keep winning, right? Especially in politics. So take a figure like Trump, and before him, Obama, and now you have Zohran. And actually, if you look at business, you have Elon Musk coming into electric car manufacturing when he kind of had no business doing it. You had him getting into, commercial space when ultimately you have the incumbent of NASA really dominating the space. You look at even the fashion industry. Look at Sarah Blakely with her invention of Spanx, right? All of these different figures are outsiders. They're all outsiders. And they all figured out a way to win. And I want to take this time to kind of like analyze that. And I think first and foremost, why do they win? Because they understood something insiders forget. Is that the future favors those who have vision and are convicted in that vision. And the fearful get left in the past. Those who are fearful of losing what they have and they're not focused on how to progress and how to make the future better get lost in the past. And here's the truth. Being an outsider is actually an advantage. Why? Because insiders are playing defense, protecting what they have. You if you want to be an outsider, if you feel like an outsider, you're playing offense with nothing to lose. That makes you dangerous. But just being an outsider isn't enough. You need 3 things. So let's break those down. 1, you need vision, seeing what others can, and not like the generic change the world vision, but really the ability to pinpoint specific problems everyone else is ignoring and seeing a concrete path to solving those problems. All these political candidates, they all talk about, the change that needs to be made. I see change that needs to be made for those who are suffering, right? In politics, it's always about, hey, these people are suffering, I'm going to make a change. And that's typically how they get their message across. For example, when Trump ran in 2016, he didn't just say Washington is corrupt. He said everyone's corrupt. He pinpointed specifics. Oh, trade deals are corrupt. The things that we established in the 90s are corrupt. They're hollowing out manufacturing. And he pointed the blame at all the insiders. And he saw what insiders dismissed. And why did they dismiss it? Because they're comfortable. And so when you have upstart in business, upstart in politics, whatever it might be, they identify problems. Take Zohran. Zohran identified, man, it's really expensive to live in New York, right? We need to bring down the rent. We need to have more free services, transportation services. I'm going to make that a reality. That was his promise. That's what he led in. And no matter how many people tried to shake him off that vision, he stuck to the vision he had to solve the problems of the things that he saw in his community. And so you can say the same thing for Obama. You can say the same thing. And then you take this, you translate it to business, right? You see, like, again, I mentioned a figure like Sarah Blakely. Didn't say fashion just needs to be disrupted, it's bad or whatever it might be. She pinpointed a need for women who wanted to wear something very comfortable with, their work attire. She wanted to empower women to feel more comfortable in the workplace, right? So she solved the problem. Elon didn't just say, we need sustainable energy. He pinpointed electric cars were ugly and slow. They weren't working at the time and nobody really cared about them. He went and said, well, I'm going to make them beautiful and fast and desirable. He had a vision to solve the problem. And so if you want to just, a formula to think about, how do you establish your own vision, right? You pinpoint the problem the insiders are ignoring. You see the human cost, right? And you make it visceral, right? You have to, this has to be a visceral problem for people to really, they need to want to have it solved. And then you envision a specific solution, right? That is practical. That is actually, that is something that could potentially be implemented. Most people stop complaining. The problem is most people stop at complaining, right? Vision actually requires all 3 of these steps when you're actually trying to have something catch on, when you're trying to establish something new. So for this first step, I just want to say, ask yourself, what do you see that insiders are blind to? If you can't articulate the problem and solution better than, if you can't articulate the problem and the solution better than anyone else, you might just be more noise. You might just be more of the things that are not necessarily going to cause a specific change to happen. But if you're good at articulating a problem, if you're actually good at coming up with solutions, then you really want to think about, trying to solve something that you see in the world, right? Those who have vision and are brave enough to bring that vision to the forefront are the ones that actually change the world. Okay. And so number 2, so you have this vision, you think about, the world and how it could potentially be. You see all these problems and you want to fix them. Okay. And you have a vision to how to fix them. And so vision tells you where to go. Vision tells you where to go. Conviction keeps you moving when everyone tells you to stop. Conviction keeps you moving when everyone tells you to stop. When you're an outsider, establishment, media, experts, even friends, family, a lot of them will line up and tell you why you can't win, why you won't be able to actually make a change. Oh, you're naive. You don't get it. Why you should be more realistic. This happens in entrepreneurship all the time. Everyone around tells you, oh man, everybody, there's 600 of those. Oh, this is not going to work. Well, actually, I don't know. Why don't you just stick to, your traditional job? Don't worry about it. Because they are not convicted in the vision. Conviction is trusting your vision more than anyone else's doubt, even your own doubt sometimes. Real conviction isn't stubbornness or ego. It's rooted in the belief and the faith that the problem you're solving matters more than your comfort, your reputation, sometimes even your safety. Yeah, I look at the most recent election and I think about 2008. Right, you had Obama as a junior senator. People thought, he had this funny name, but he was a great orator. And he's running against a Clinton machine. The Clintons were a machine. They were a dynasty. And everyone said, man, just wait your turn. Don't worry about it. And he didn't. He kept going. He had a vision, kept having conviction in that vision, and he won. Same thing with Trump. He's running against Jeb Bush and the Bush machine. He kept going. He pushed his vision, and he won. And then he actually came up against the Clinton machine, pushed his vision, was convicted, and he won. And then you have Zohran. Same thing. He's going up against an incumbent Democratic machine in New York. The Cuomo family is a dynasty. He went up, had conviction in his beliefs, and he won. Elon went up against all the car companies, had conviction, had determination, and he won. And so every successful outsider has moments where continuing forward looked insane, where quitting seemed rational. But conviction makes you move forward anyway. But conviction isn't delusional. Stay committed to your vision, but adapt your strategy based on reality. So the test is, can you keep going when everyone doubts you? Can you adapt without abandoning your vision? Are you willing to pay the cost to see things through? Because oftentimes the people that are not necessarily willing to pay the cost don't actually move anything forward. So if the answer is no, then you don't necessarily have that much conviction or as much conviction as you need. You have a preference, and preferences don't beat the establishment. And third, potentially most important, is storytelling. The issue is nobody actually cares about your vision if you can't articulate it, if you can't make them feel why it matters. Remember, insiders have institutional credibility. When they speak, people listen by default. When you speak, you have to earn every second. Every second counts. Being on message every single time counts. You saw that in this last election. Being on message every single time really matters. Remember, all political campaigns that have worked in basically our history, Obama, hope and change. Trump, make America great again. Zohran, lower the rent, lower the cost. That's it. It was just staying on message. Same thing in business. If you're building a business, you better stay on message as to what you are providing, what your solution is giving people, and why it matters. Remember, Steve Jobs didn't sell computers. He sold rebels who think different than the stodgy Microsoft PC that everybody was using. Airbnb didn't sell couches. They sold belonging anywhere. People don't buy solutions. They don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. They buy stories about what those solutions make possible. For those interested in more of that, you should listen to Simon Sinek on why your why is most important. His famous TED talk that he gave. People don't buy solutions. They buy stories about what those solutions make possible. So when you're thinking about storytelling, narratives, and pushing, messages along, what I would say that you should really think about is, one, the world as it is. Make sure you're able to articulate what's actually broken and make people feel it. You should also figure out what the cause of that pain is and being able to articulate it. And then the vision, what could be, and what could be better feel really good. Make that visceral. And then the stakes. What happens if that doesn't happen? What happens if the future I'm talking about doesn't come to fruition? How does that affect your life? Weak storytelling, oh, well, for me, I'll fix everything. Versus powerful storytelling is join me and together we will fight for a better future. Powerful storytelling makes you a hero. People move mountains to be the hero of their own story. And having them join you in those solutions is what gets them activated, motivated to be a part. Ultimately, outsiders are the ones that actually shape the future. They prove what's possible. And so, as something that I'm thinking about a lot of like, what is important to me? What are the things that I want to see happen in the world? What are the things that, what are the problems I see in the world, and how can I be the outsider that actually helps fix them? Am I going to keep, waiting for permission? I think about that a lot. Even, talking about this topic, I'm like, oh man, politics, how are people going to feel? It's like, I'm going to share something that I've seen in people that have won successful campaigns or have done well in business. They don't wait for permission. They don't necessarily play by all the rules that were set before them. And for me as a faith-driven person, I'm like, man, that's powerful. If I have a message of love and hope and all this other stuff, then I want to make sure that message goes out to the world. I need to be a better advocate. I need to be a person that is able to share that message more powerfully. I need to be able to shape a future where people have more hope, more love. And ultimately, you don't need an invitation. You need a vision to see what insiders can't. You need conviction to push through everyone else's doubts, even sometimes your own doubts. And you need storytelling to make people feel why it matters. The future favors those with conviction, and the fearful get left in the past. Being an outsider is hard. You'll face opposition that insiders never face. You'll be dismissed and mocked. But here's the gift. Nobody expects you to win, which means you're free to do things they'd never risk doing. So I'll leave you with this couple questions. What problem do you see that everyone else ignores? What are you convicted enough about to risk everything? What story can you tell that makes people feel like they're part of something bigger? Answer those 3 questions and you're not an outsider anymore. You're someone who's about to change the game. That's exactly what the world needs. That's it for today. Please remember, share this with, anybody who you think would benefit. Remember, you need vision, you need conviction, and you need a story to really shape the future. Now go build something that people never saw coming. Stay convicted and have faith. Peace.